Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, we're going to go over another presser that Carney had, and I'm going to kind of mix it with a other speech rally that he was at, just to show the hypocrisy and idiocracy of this man and the party. They know no bounds to their evil and corruption. Just going to kind of concentrate this whole episode on this because I think people really need to see it. And hopefully you like the episode so that you will subscribe and share so that other people can kind of have their eyes opened up on, like I said, how bad these people are. Create a crisis and then swoop in like a buzzard and pick it apart, and then look like the hero when the smoke is all cleared, with the protection of mainstream media. Let's just dive right into this. I got a fair amount of video to go through. Try and keep this as short as possible. Let's listen to this goofball.
No. Next question.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Abigail Beeman, CTV News. On tax havens in relation to Brookfield, you've said that you know how the world works. Should Canadians infer from that you wouldn't condemn the use of tax havens?
I've very strong. I have a long career in the private sector. I've a longer career in the public sector. What's important is that we have a effective tax system, and that every company follows the rules of those tax to not just the letter but the spirit of those regulations. And we need to continue to refine our tax system to ensure that companies are paying their fair share of tax. And my government will also ensure that the federal government is spending only those dollars that are necessary. So one of the core elements of our strategy...
See how he got right off that? What's this got to do with government spending?
...is to spend less as a federal government so that Canada can invest more. And I'll finish on this point, which is we want to make sure that scarce federal dollars, taxpayers' dollars, catalyze enormous private investment. And so the scale of what we're looking to do in the housing sector is indicative of that. Scarce dollars, massive private investment.
Bullshit. You didn't even answer the question.
Last week talking about how I think that this is the whole purpose of his housing policy, that his housing policy is to create hundreds of thousands of rental units, potentially for Brookfield to own and manage. Go check out that video because I walk you through the entire thing. But this is everything that's wrong with the Liberal grift, with Liberals pushing the green policies using big government to fund big corporations. It's corporatism, and Canadians should reject this. Canadians should choose to go with the free market approach to things and get big governments and big business away from each other and break them up. And unfortunately, that is not the direction that Mark Carney is going.
Yeah, this is his plan. He's going to build multiplexes, huge apartment buildings with little wee domiciles. You will own nothing and you will be happy. You will be forced to succumb to the socialist society. And they will slowly, by doing this and not allowing housings to be built unless they are owned by corporations, they will force you, like I said, to be part of the socialist system. You won't be able to afford a house because only the rich will be able to do it. You won't be able to build a house because you won't be rich enough to pass all of the regulations, legislations, and whatever green crap they want to throw in front of you. In the meantime, they will be doling out taxpayer dollars to these corporations in which he's an investor. He also helped run, and he helped launder money and sequester contracts through manipulation of the government. Let's just deal a little bit more with here what the Candace is talking about.
And something else about the economy, we just got the economic figures on Friday, and wow, Canada's economy, the wheels are starting to fall off. So here is the Financial Post, is how they reported it. Canada's unemployment rate rises to 6.7% as the economy loses 33,000 jobs, the largest decrease in employment since January 2022. We read from the story, nearly 1.5 million people in Canada were unemployed in March 2025, up 36,000 from the previous month and up 167,000 from a year ago. Employment fell in the wholesale and retail trade, information, culture and recreation, agriculture, manufacturing, and construction sectors. Wow, that's pretty much most of the economy here. We're feeling the contraction. This is what a quote from this article says: the wheels may be starting to fall off the Canadian labor market, with a 33,000 person decline in jobs during March, falling well short of consensus forecasts for a 10,000 gain, says Andrew Grantham, an economist with CIBC Capital Markets, after the data was released. So economists projected that we were going to gain 10,000 jobs. Instead, we lost 33,000 jobs. Folks, this is what the entire election should be fought on. The entire election should be a referendum on the Liberal economy, what the Liberal policies have done to our country. This is just one example. And I know the legacy media will try to tell you that this entire thing is a result of Donald Trump, President Trump, his tariffs, and the retaliatory tariffs that the Canadian leaders are taking. But that's not even the case, because the tariffs have just come in and we haven't really felt the extreme extent of those tariffs and the resulting job losses. These job losses, this jobs report, is basically pre-tariffs, and it is painting an absolutely bleak picture. Now, while Canada is suffering this terrible job loss, we see the United States is actually having the opposite impact. So look, President Trump's tariffs are absolutely ridiculous and stupid, and I'm no fan of them whatsoever. They have absolutely just caused a ruckus in the stock market, and the American economy, we're told, isn't doing very well. And yet, when their numbers came out, we learned, the Bureau of Statistics reported, an increase of 228,000 new jobs, right? So just compare and contrast, right? We're told that Donald Trump is an absolute economically illiterate, and he's an oaf, and he's going to drive the Americans into depression. And meanwhile, Mark Carney is some kind of an economic rock star that's going to guide us through this tumultuous period. And yet, the numbers show the exact opposite, that the United States is gaining hundreds of thousands of jobs, while Canada is losing tens of thousands of jobs. It is just absolutely unconscionable.
And she's absolutely correct. We've been in a downhill free fall from what the Liberals have done. And you got to remember, Carney's been helping the Trudeau Liberals silently from the dark shadows since he first got in. And he was then known 5 years ago to be involved in helping the Liberal Party. This is exactly what the Liberals always say that they don't want. This is the white privileged kid, the corporate master, the ultra rich ruling over the normal middle and lower class. This guy is even beyond that. This guy is so evil. He is so in cahoots with the uber 0.1% of the world's wealth. It's disgusting. And we're just going to expose some of the hypocrisy here today. Let's move on a little bit further. I want to go back to this one video just to kind of prove something. What she was saying, they're using Trump in order to carry this narrative, not only to get them elected, but they're also doing it in order to cover for the fact that we are in a free fall. The Liberals have destroyed us economically. Everything about us, they have destroyed. You forget about the good old days of seeing an American wearing a Canadian patch because they know that they can go anywhere in the world and they're loved. No, that's not happening. Canadians, you don't even have the respect. I got friends that still touring all over the place. Luckily, they got money. They can get out there. Actually, most of them are working outside of the country because there's no work here. And they say the same thing. You don't wear the Canada flag anymore. You just don't, because it doesn't get you any credit. In fact, they laugh and mock at you. Right away, they want to look and talk about your stupid socks while you destroy the world and pick fights all over the place. So they've destroyed every single part of what it is to be Canadian. We have become the post-national state. And that's what these people want. Now, I'm going to go back to this, and I want to just show how the entire media helping to pass this hate Trump narrative is going to destroy our country. Now, we all remember him saying that the ties that Canada and the United States had once are over. That cost us huge. Our dollar plummeted that day. I showed that on a previous episode. Feel free. I really do entice you guys to go through. You'll find heavy bombshells. I broke a lot of stories and just exposed a lot of stuff you will not see on other media outlets, especially mainstream. Mainstream, ixay on the truth say. They don't like talking about it. Instead, it's, hey, look, fetch the ball. I'm here to make sure that you're not focused on the ball, you're focused on the prize. Now, I'm going to break this apart with just one province that used Trump to get reelected. And now that province is going to suffer like no other province has suffered before. Let's take a listen.
We're fighting them on Fox News, which is what they understand. We're sending Doug Ford onto Fox News to show them that we're not.
That's proof he's a liberal. Dougie is a liberal dressed in conservative clothing. He's not a conservative by any means. By any means.
Not messing around up here.
And here comes the unity.
And we're going to send Danielle next. Maybe we won't send her. We won't send Danielle. No, maybe we won't. We won't send Danielle.
The one premier who actually fought for the entirety of Canada in a cool, collective, Canadian way. She's now the enemy. Divide and conquer. Fear, hate, and division. That's how these socialists work. That is how they stay in power. Do not succumb to the fear, hate, and division. Alberta is our friend. Alberta has been paying for a lot more per capita, per citizen than any other province since Alberta became oil rich. And even before that, when they were farmers, same thing with Saskatchewan. These people are our friends. They're Canadians. They try to buy Canadian. They try to support Canadian. They've been doing this for generations while the East has constantly used a long stick in order to disturb a pile of crap that isn't even existent. But all of these liberals out East love rubbing their face in this feces, and they just love the hate. Take a step back. Are you Canadian or not? Are you Canadian or not? A Canadian is a Canadian. Isn't that what the whole saying is? Then why this hate on Alberta? Why this hate on Saskatchewan? What happened to unity? If we really did come together and get rid of this evil Liberal Party, what it has become, they're not the Liberal Party of the past. These people are corrupt. If we can get rid of them, think of what we can do when we actually come together. Listen to this puke.
We're going to keep her. No, keep her. No, that's a bad idea. Forget. Strike that. Strike
No,
that.
keep her now.
Just ignore that back there. So we got.
Now they don't even want to keep her. Now she's not even Canadian. So Alberta, you're not even Canadian. That's what he's saying. Now let's just expose where this type of a leader will take us. And I'm going to use Dougie. And I done previous episodes on him like I always entice you. Please scroll and check out all my videos. Listen to the pit bull standing on a hill. He looks like this huge 600-pound dog.
A tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans.
This is because he's trying to win an election.
And I'm going to repeat that on NBC, CNN, Fox News, CNBC. I'm going to be hammering the airwaves to get that message to the Americans. They're going to get hurt. It's the wrong decision. But if they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face. So
he did this for weeks, all through. Does he think that the States doesn't see what's going on? I mean, really. It's not just one guy sitting in the president's office. He's got thousands, hundreds of thousands, in fact, millions of people that are on his side. Do you really think they don't hear and see what's going on in Canada? I warned Dougie the second he started barking like an idiot. Whoa, Dougie, whoa, what are you doing? You are so not your brother. And he's not. God, we all miss Rob. Rob had more morals in the tip of his pinky than this man would ever dream of having. This guy's a waste of skin. Like I said, he's a liberal dressed in conservative clothing. Now, the fallout, and I warned, and I was correct, because I do piles of research. I do the research so that you guys don't have to. Although everything's down there, I urge you to watch all the previous episodes so you can get caught up and see what's going on, all not just in Canada, but around the world that's affecting Canada. And this was a huge mistake. This was Dougie after he went and saw Lutnick. Now, Lutnick called him the day before. Actually, it was 2 days before the actual meeting. And he tried to have a conversation with him. Pretty much told him to go lay by his dish. Buddy, didn't you get the memo? We're not, everybody in the world is going to suffer these same tariffs. Nobody's getting any favoritism. We need to secure our military. And this is what we need. We need the metals. We need the chips, right? We need, these are all things they need. They need the energy. They need this stuff. We're their partner. We're their brother. It's not that they were coming at us to hurt us. They were coming at us because they saw how bad our own government had caused our country to affect their country. The ineptitude of the last 9 years was bleeding into the United States. This is their way of going, whoa, everybody's getting it. And now we're going to deal with you and we're going to negotiate on some things because you're lacking. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but we were one of the founders of NATO. And yet we're at the very bottom of the barrel. Now all of the last people to join NATO have been embarrassing us, telling Canada, Jesus, get your shit together. Pay up. You made a promise. I'm a Canadian, man. I'm sorry. You shake your hand or you make a verbal promise, let alone sign on the dotted line. You bloody well do everything you possibly can in order to fulfill that promise. And what Trudeau did and the Liberals did decimated us on the world stage. And the States knew this. So Lutnick called him up, told him, hey, man, and Doug lost it on Lutnick. What Lutnick didn't know, or what Ford didn't know, is he was sitting in an office called the Oval Office with it on speakerphone. And there was at least 20 people in there, including the president himself, who listened to all of this silently, while Lutnick exposed what an idiot this guy was and what he was doing on purpose. He was purposely using these tariffs and blowing them out of proportion in order to gain and garner votes, which they pointed out that Carney's doing as well. So let's just go on. This is now, then the next day, Lutnick pretty much called him and said, by the way, this is what we're doing. You better get down here because you have 16 hours. And boom, tail between his legs, down, sat in a meeting, got out, listened to the tone when he got back home. By the way,
The last thing I want to do is
bring any of those
antagonize and everyone goes to war again. And I want to try to move forward on any negotiations. That's what I believe in. I think he's totally toned it down. I haven't seen him do an interview since we had our meeting. And
This was 3 days after, by the way. He was maintaining media silence. He was licking his wounds. And I'm going to show you 2 clips right after this that happened the day after the meeting. Lutnick has done over 60 different interviews and pressers from the time he walked out of that meeting with Doug Ford to the time Doug Ford made this statement. And on every one of them, he chewed Doug out and literally exposed him for what he is. But first, I want you to see how when the big pit bull came running down, they actually realized it was a chihuahua with fake teeth. Listen.
Kind of held back as well. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize our talks and our negotiations. I want to make sure when we get through this, we're on the tier 1 level of being a supplier and a good supplier to the U.S. But we have to take care of things at home as well. As I mentioned, the permitting on infrastructure, making sure we have open and free trade across the country, taking the burdens off the backs of companies that find it hard to compete, not to mention an additional cost on that. So we need to take care of our own home, and then we're going to continue negotiating with Secretary Lutnick.
Now, then why isn't he going after Carney? Why isn't he attacking the Liberals? The Liberals are the reason the Ring of Fire sits dormant. It's the reason the auto sector is in the shambles it's in today. Well, not really. It's the shambles it was before he opened his mouth and went down south and got disciplined. It's the Liberals that caused all of the economic, physical, and mental harms that this country has succumbed to over the past 9 years. Why isn't he? He doesn't even have to back up Poilievre. I mean, it shows right there he's not a conservative by not backing up the federal Conservative Party, but at least start attacking Carney. Start proving the point that it's the Liberals are the reason. Maybe just say something? No, and now he's a very nice, quiet man. We're going to work on things at home because I'm not a dog anymore. I got castrated when I went down to the States because... yes, he got the shit kicked out of him. This is Trump the next morning after the meeting.
And we had a problem with Ontario, and they dropped that when I let them know what we were going to be doing. They dropped it immediately, so I'm glad, because electricity, you shouldn't be playing with electricity. It affects people's lives there.
Now, I made this point a month ago. By saying you're going to shut the power off to American citizens is an act of war, because you're threatening the harm of Americans on American soil. A lot of us were saying it. More and more after I started voicing it up, a week went by, I heard another person, then I hear another person, then I'd hear another media person. Of course, not mainstream. They're too busy trying to cause hate, fear, hate, and division. It's all Trump's fault. I don't know what he said on the phone, but from reading a lot of posts and threads, I think it was literally, that's an act of war. Do you really want to push our buttons? We can do this the easy way. We can do this the easy way. We've got no military. Scary. Trust me, I was starting to get scared because of these assholes and their big mouths who don't know anything of what they're talking about. Or they do and they're just blatantly lying. Either way, you're stupid. Either way, they are just stupid. And Carney is at the highest level doing the same thing. Now, listen to what he has to say about electricity after Dougie and his big mouth.
Actually their life. I mean, it can affect, depending on weather, it can affect their life. So we can't do that. And it doesn't make sense that our country allows electricity to be made in another country and sold into us. Who did that deal for the United States? Okay.
So, again, through posts and threads, I know they're doing what's called looping. They're already starting to try and tie up loops to other energy sources down in the States, other plants, to start supplying all of the states that are buying Canadian energy. They're going to start cutting off Ontario first, and they're going to work their way all the way across the eastern seaboard. You can thank Doug Ford and his big mouth for this. There goes billions of dollars of profit from Canada. Big mouth. All for an election. and the people fell for it when there's actually a real Conservative Party there that Derek Sloan and the rest of them are in. But again, no media, no fair debate. They don't want you knowing this, just like they don't want Maxime Bernier on the stage. They don't want a real democracy. Now, here's Lutnick, the day after the meeting. Now remember what Dougie said. Well, I haven't heard him saying anything out there. Everything's calmed right down. First, she starts off with the tweet that Trump sent out the next morning after that meeting. This is serious to Ontario.
But here's what the president said just this morning about our closest trading partner. He said that he's going to impose tariffs that will permanently shut down the Canadian car industry. Why is it in America's interest to destroy one of Canada's biggest industries?
Okay, so let's go back a little. Number one, the Ontario Premier threatened energy against America. You can't threaten.
But
an
he was
American.
responding to what you did.
No. He wasn't, and he knows he wasn't, and he
Busted. Right there. Busted. I knew. Anybody who does piles of research knows this. I don't even get paid. I'm not a politician, and I knew this.
He knows he made a mistake and he withdrew it. The president gave USMCA the agreement with USMCA. He said, I'll let that remain tariff-free, but anybody who's not in USMCA is going to pay a tariff until fentanyl deaths end in America. Try not to forget, March is about fentanyl deaths in America. We've got to end it. And then let's talk about cars just for a minute.
Now, Canada is one of the largest distributors globally of fentanyl. Yes, we are. Media doesn't want to tell you that. I expose it in previous episodes. There are also more than 75% of the terrorists that have been caught crossing into the United States have come from Canada. Mainstream media won't tell you that, but I have, and the facts are in previous videos. This is a fact. In fact, the number's even higher. When we were looking into back-checking the math, it's like 84%. That is a huge high stat. They want secure borders. They want real logistics. And they wanted to do a partnership. But Canada is weak because they keep removing the jobs, putting more bureaucracy involved, and this whole pacify law. Slap on the wrist, go on your way. Slap on the wrist, go kill somebody else. Slap on the wrist, go do some more damage. It's got to end. Let alone the Chinese interference that they all know about, that I expose on previous episodes. Sam Cooper keeps dropping bombshell after bombshell. Even the episode I just did on China helping Carney. You got real journalists that aren't part of mainstream that have known this and have been going around to all of us different independent media telling this, trying to get it out. He's even said, if other journalists want, I'll give them all my information so they can actually do their job. Nobody takes him up on the mainstream. In the meantime, I'm there with my hand up. I'll take it. So I'm on his mailing list. I have access. He sends me stuff all the time, all the updates. It's not hard if you want to tell the news, if you want to tell the truth. Sorry, just the truth. So much for everything Doug just said. He just lied again. But again, our mainstream isn't going to show you any of this. Because it proves that Carney is 10 times worse. Let's move on.
I'd also like to ask you to respond to Mr. Poilievre's rallies. He's attracting thousands of people who are motivated in a way we haven't seen in quite a while. A lot of them don't like you. If you were to win, how would you address that segment of the population?
I think the first is to recognize that as a government, you serve all Canadians. That's fundamental. It goes to the previous question with respect to the West. It goes to your question. I am not running to be a MP for a segment of Nepean, which is the constituency, the riding in which I'm running. I'm not running for a segment.
By the way, previous episodes, I exposed that one as well. They fired Chandra Arya to give him the safest electoral riding for the Liberals that they could give. They literally threw one of their own to the wolves. The one guy who finally stood up and said, listen, we have got a serious Palestinian problem. We're dealing with extremists. This hate and division has got to end. And they punted him. No excuse. They said, well, it was because he went to India without permission. That's bullshit. I expose it. Previous episodes, I did a 3-part series on it. I urge you to watch it. It exposes how literally not only Trudeau Jr., little potato, but how it started with big potato, and how it almost looks as though the evidence shows that his dad actually let the airplane get blown up. He knew something was going to happen, but turned a blind eye in order to stir the pile, in order to help China. This isn't a new thing. This goes back a long ways. Again, Sam Cooper. After I did that, Sam Cooper released more, and I'm going, holy shit, it just proved I was right. It's literally, the corruption is so deep. It's so deep.
Segment, I'm running to represent all the people of Nepean. With my Liberal colleagues, they are doing the same. But if we form government, if Canadians give us that trust, we then serve all Canadians equally. It's a sacred honor to be bestowed on individuals, and one I take exceptionally seriously. Thank you. En ce qui concerne,
takes very seriously. After insulting Daniel Smith and dividing Canada once again, like I showed you in that little clip. Now, in case you haven't seen the previous episode and you're a new viewer, I'm going to kind of rehash this. This is a real politician, hopefully the future Prime Minister of Canada, and hopefully not the leader of the new country of whatever Saskatchewan and Alberta plan to call themselves if the Liberals are elected, because it's going to happen. You can only persecute people for so long until they finally stand up. Listen to her rebuttal. Listen to her response. Literally, this woman is amazing. Best PM, best. See, I'm already calling her Prime Minister. Best Premier in Canada, hands down.
How do you feel about being mocked by the Prime Minister of Canada and Liberal leaders, which he did, I believe, in Victoria, bringing your name up and the name of Premier Ford? But
this is the video I showed you. That's why I showed it to you, for you to have to understand where the question came from. Sorry, I'm using my old recording.
More so yourself.
This is off of the other broadcast I did
during the campaign.
Well, I've noticed this with progressive men, how much they talk about how much they support women until they meet a strong conservative woman. And so this is a pretty consistent type of approach that I've seen, not only from the current Prime Minister, but the former one as well. And the attitude is,
look at the
sit
doctor
down and
laughing.
shut up. Well, I don't shut up. I make sure that Albertans know exactly how I feel about issues, and I'm going to continue advocating on behalf of my province, whether he likes it or not.
Ready? Boom. Drop the mic. Drop the mic. And guess what? Carney's just feeding the fire. He really doesn't give a rat's ass about Canada. If you're going to treat an entire area, let alone not just one area or province, but 2 provinces, look what's going on out in Atlantic Canada with the fisheries and the tariffs from China. There's nothing being said. Mainstream's not even talking about why, because they're all in cahoots with China. They don't want to piss China off. China's their buddy. China's helping them get elected. This is absolutely crazy. Our media is just so bought and paid for. We're going to move on. Here we go.
I know how to build strong economies.
Mark Carney's business background is his main selling point in his Liberal leadership campaign.
Now, listen to how they bring the Conservatives into this when they don't even need to. This is mainstream. Forced to report on something from all of us little independents. And I'm pretty small, so not necessarily me per se, but other independents who have got a lot more viewers. Put enough pressure that they expose this, and so they had to say something about it. It's the only reason they're talking about it. But listen to how they throw the conservative hate twist in there.
Now it's being used against him.
I was chair of Brookfield Asset Management.
Carney was asked about his role in the decision to move the multi-billion-dollar investment firm's headquarters from Toronto to New York.
The formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board.
Conservatives say that's not true.
Conservatives say that's not true.
He's demonstrably lied to Canadians.
Brookfield Asset Management announced plans to move its headquarters in October, a move intended to entice more Americans to invest.
There is great access to capital in Toronto, but increasingly there's more money south of the border.
Mark Carney wrote,
What they didn't say is they did it when Trump said, you better be bringing your companies here or there's going to be hell to pay. You come here or we're going to start tariffing you. We're going to start persecuting you. We're going to do everything we can in order to get these companies to come back to the States. We want the companies in the States. And guess what? It is cheaper in the States. They fled, tail between their legs, for profit, all for profit. If Carney was real Canadian, he wouldn't have left. Whose signature is that? Now, why did they even bring the Conservatives up if they know that he did this? They even bring a pundit on there to say, well, it's good business. It's good business. Why don't you bring up the fact that because the taxes here are insane? Why don't you bring up the fact because Trump literally put the threat out there? Why don't you tell the people the truth? This is propaganda.
Wrote to shareholders in December, saying the board unanimously recommends that shareholders vote for the arrangement resolution at the meeting. He resigned from the board in mid-January to launch his campaign.
So he did it. He lied right there in the open. But do you see how mainstream just kind of rolls this around, right? This is CBC. See that? CBC. No surprise. This is what they do. Propaganda. They want this man elected. They like their free money to not even have to go and get out of their chairs. Oh, with the billions we're giving them. Shit, they got coffee runners. They got hundreds of people on the keyboards. Doing all their homework. Everything comes down from Carney and the Liberals. This is what we want you to say. This is what we're going to do. Don't mention this. Don't mention that. It's as obvious as the day is long. As sure as shit as the sun's going to rise in the morning. These guys are going to lie. Moving on. Let's just expose a little bit more. This is literally breaking the law. Listen carefully.
Start with this video that has resurfaced of Mark Carney. This is back in his days where he was both advising governments and also working for Brookfield, which is a large investment fund. And he basically admitted to the grift. This is what so many liberal insiders do, right? They work in liberal policies, they advise the government, and they push the government towards enacting certain policies. And then they jump ship and they go and they invest in the companies that get the money from the federal government or get the advantage that the legislation is pointing to, and they make themselves rich. It's so sickening to see people get into politics to make themselves rich. And Mark Carney is admitting that he's an example of that. So here he is. I'm going to walk you through this clip. He's at a fireside chat, and he's talking about how he used to provide pro bono consulting work for politicians. And in that pro bono work, he would tell them to bring in policies. And then he goes on to say that those policies help the companies that he's investing in, and it helped to Brookfield mobilize billions of dollars. Let's play this clip.
I do spend some time advising on what, again, pro bono, but advising on the types of policies that are going to have maximum impacts for investors. So I'll give you an example, which is one of the issues. It's not the biggest issue. It's like 2% of global emissions. You wouldn't know it from the headlines, but 2% of global emissions is for air travel, emissions from air travel. Now, so the question is, are we going to have green, sustainable aviation fuel? What's happened in the UK, the EU, is they've said to major airlines, look, if you're flying in and out of Heathrow or wherever, you have to have 10% of your load has to be sustainable aviation fuel by, I think it's 2030. Consequence of that policy has been to convert some entrepreneurs in Texas, in this case, a company called Infineon, to become economic. Because all of a sudden American Airlines, British Airways need to buy that fuel. They'll pay a green premium. You've got an offtake, that's high credit quality. And so in that case, we Brookfield put $1 billion to work there, and it's a fantastic opportunity.
Now, did you notice the poppy? What a disgrace this man is. What a disgrace.
A fantastic opportunity for someone like Mark Carney to invest in companies like the one he was talking about in Texas, where he says that to make them economical, as in to make them make sense as a business, they need that pressure on the governments in order to make airlines purchase that product. This is a scam, folks. This is not a free market economy.
Now, he actually broke a pile of rules. The Trade Commission alone should be looking into this. And guess what? They are. Previous episodes. They had a Senate committee. They're going to start charging people. His name is on the list. Yes, it is. Previous episodes. Check them out. I expose all of this. And here's something else that I blew the whistle on. That it was already way before this video even came up. He did the same thing with heat pumps. Do you remember the Canadian heat pump? Well, we're going to get heat pumps, heat pumps, heat pumps, heat pumps. He did that in Britain while he was the bank governor. Or the governor of the bank. Brookfield bought up all of the different heat pump companies. He helped pass the legislation in order to go past all of their boiler specifics that they have and everything else there, and then help push legislation through for this new green heat pump thing. Who made the money? Taxpayers. Their money was used to help subsidize these companies to lower the cost so that citizens were now forced to buy the said product. The same thing that they're doing in Canada, while Carney was advising Trudeau. Where's the RCMP? Where's the Trades Commission in Canada? Where's the media? Instead, it's ready, get the ball. Go get Trump. Ready? Trump ball. Here's the ball. Trump's the ball. Ready? Go get the ball. Evil. These people are evil. All they care about is money. We're just going to keep moving on because it never ends. Literally, the hypocrisy never ends with these liberals. Embarrassing.
But if we form government, if Canadians give us that trust.
Darn internet's giving me issues today.
Very strong.
Listen close.
Next question.
Hi, Jared Yeager here with the Western Standard. So yesterday at your rally, you said Pierre Poilievre's plan is to, quote, divide and be conquered. As of now, Canada is reliant on the U.S. to get our own oil from one side of the country to the other. By not repealing...
This is what Daniel Smith kept saying. When Dougie was flipping at the gills, she was like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they actually did pressure her to put tariffs on the oil. She's like, you guys are all idiots. You wouldn't let us build an Energy East to give you oil directly because you didn't want to send any money to us, and you left yourselves with your pants down, your wanker hanging out. Hey, the oil goes all the way down, turns around, and comes right back up. What do you think? What do you think Trump will do? Drip, drip, and then no oil and gas in central Canada. She's the only one, light years ahead of everybody else. She's the only one who actually read her homework. These people don't give a shit. It's all profit on the backs of hardworking Canadians.
Bill C-69 and allowing Quebec to veto a pipeline across Canada, are you not yourself setting up Canada to be divided and conquered?
Absolutely not. In fact, in the premise of your question, you answer it, which...
What? What? He likes doing that. Well, in the premise of your question, he says it all the time. Word salad.
Which is, if we are going to build, and I am a proponent of building big energy infrastructure in this country.
No pipelines. Hear that? Big energy. Wait, what kind of energy?
But if we are going to build big energy infrastructure in this country, there is a we in that. It is not imposed. It is not imposed by the federal government. It's not imposed by an opposition politician. It's not imposed by a company. It requires the support of, in the example you gave, in Energy East of Quebec, the other provinces that are affected. It requires the support, the free, prior, and informed consent of First Nations.
And there it is again, First Nations. Check out my previous episode. I'll show you how he treats First Nations in third world countries. He just pushes them right off the land in places he can. He uses the government because, why not? They're dictatorship. You go down there with guns and you push them suckers off there. You build a bridge, or you build a dam, you flood out all their lands, and you say, too bad, too late. No consultation, no nothing. Burn the forest down. Chase the people right out. No problem. What about this new COP that's going on down there? Who do you think's building the road? What are they going through? A protected rainforest. For a climate meeting. They're destroying rainforest for a climate meeting. Literally, it never ends. Where's the media? Silent. Absolutely silent.
So that's the exact opposite, which is that coming together to build. Now, what I've proposed, both at the First Minister's level and...
Oh, and don't forget, I'm going to do an episode here on this whole Indigenous thing, because this is all bullshit. Again, the government has put their feet... Literally, they've been stacking... The Trudeau government is one of the worst. He's worse than his dad was with the residential schools. He's all about this, we're going to do reconciliation. And in the meantime, he stopped any type of industry, any type of self-determination, of self-wealth, of growth from going anywhere near any of these tribal lands, any of these reserves, any of these tribes, any of these nations. It's all because of them. Take a look at who's actually backing Poilievre. They're trying to get rid of Aaron Gunn. What about Elia Ross? What has he got to say about this? Like I said, I'm doing an episode on this because enough's enough. And the media throws us out too. Well, Poilievre doesn't talk to the Indigenous people, but he does. Does he? Does he really? Or is it just a few chiefs that they're handing checks over to that isn't even helping the people in any way? It's the same thing that's been going on since the whole colonial age. Push them back, throw them a little bit of money, leave them poor, leave them broke, leave them wanting. That's not what's best. It's not what's best for the Indigenous. It's not what's best for Canadians. It's not what's best for any single person who calls himself a Canadian or is a citizen of this land. It's all bullshit. I'm not going to let this guy finish because it's all lies. Let's get started on the lies. Really simply, this is an old video.
The Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney.
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
Do you support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
Environmental and commercial reasons, he says. So there's no viability. So there's no need for oil. Oil's not needed anywhere in the world. All of the indigenous reserves, all of the indigenous nations that it would have went through, that would have profited off it and got jobs from maintaining it, let alone helping to build it. No. There's just no equity in it. There's no reasoning to it.
I think it's sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was
it's sensible.
Decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Polyev, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues, I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works.
He's going to explain how the economy works. Sure as shit you are. You know nothing about the economy. All you care about is profit on the backs of any single person that you can take it from. From Brazil, Belize, just anywhere. Indonesia, China. He doesn't care. And he knows that with our system and the laws that he can't use guns in order to force his way, so they use legislation in order to do it. And look what's happened to our country in 9 years.
Thank you so much.
Well, it may help. One of the issues for...
This is why Harper just endorsed Polyev and not this idiot.
This committee in thinking about a sustainable transition.
Do you support it?
Where is Canada's role in those as energy transitions from fossil fuels to renewables? And in different jurisdictions, into different geography, it matters. It matters. Okay. And this is a fundamental point.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. This is a fundamental. You're finally getting to a point
you've exceeded
that
the
is
time.
relevant to this committee's inquiry.
What you're saying is you oppose pipelines in Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what you've actually said.
There are specific.
That's your double standard.
It is not a double standard.
It is a double standard.
No, it's not.
You make billions of dollars off foreign pipelines, and you shut them down here at home, putting our people out of work.
That you are a representative of the Canadian people, and one of your responsibilities, including at this committee,
is to fight for Canadian jobs, and
not
foreign jobs like you.
Exactly, to fight for Canadian jobs, and the types of Canadian jobs that are durable and are going to move forward.
Right.
I grew up in Alberta. I know the innovative nature of that.
Well, there's the Alberta thing again. Anybody in Alberta going to vote for this guy? No, they're not. Did you take a look at what I showed you on the rally that just happened? No, they're not. This guy is a complete piece of crap. Everybody there knows it. This is the same argument that the East has been throwing out West for 60 years. Oh, well, by the time we get around to it, we won't even need it. It's the same excuse. They're pulling it, the mainstream's pushing it today. Well, considering how close we are to getting green energy and solar panels, I use solar, guys, come on. Off grid. Man, the very first thing I did was test it. I lived in an ice shack while I was working to see how vast and how far it could go. And guess what? I still needed a damn generator. This is all lies. It's all for profit and division.
Go try to give that answer back in Alberta, because I grew up there too, and I can tell you the people. I can tell you the people of Alberta would be ashamed with the answer you just gave. That you would give billions of dollars to foreign pipelines while not allowing Canadians to build pipelines here at home. That is the kind of elite Davos hypocrisy.
Now, do you remember the whole? And even the media was on board with this because they were pushing this. Remember? Here's Trump. Here's Trump. Here's Trump. Focus on Trump. Go get Trump. The biggest discussion was, holy crap, we need pipelines. Because all of a sudden they started to realize, thanks to small media outlets and Daniel Smith and Mo and even out east, they got refineries, they're bringing in blood oil. And they're like, why don't we have, we should be completely self-sufficient. We shouldn't have a single drip of oil, gas, any of that combustible material or fuels coming in from another country when we are the third largest reserves in the world. Makes no sense at all. Everybody was on board. But the media has been slowly pacifying this, changing it and pushing it off to the side, pushing it off. And now all of a sudden, now they don't even talk about it. It takes people like the Western Standard, and it takes people like Sun. It takes people like real journalists, ones that don't get paid by your tax dollars, to bring it up. And guess what? When you watch these clips on CTV, you don't see those questions. You only see the questions from CTV, CBC, all the ones that are on payroll. They don't show you. Propaganda. How evil is Brookfield? I urge you to watch my other episodes. Seriously. This deal was brokered while Carney was in Brookfield. They already saw what was going on. They helped with the demise of this pipeline. with the other green agendaists who were in the Biden administration so that their rich buddies could buy it out for super cheap. Here it is.
About Brookfield Asset Management. And it looks like they might be on the verge of buying Colonial Pipeline.
Yeah, Colonial Pipeline.
And you know, it makes you
A
think.
big one.
It makes you think about all the ways we depend on fuel in our daily lives, right?
Absolutely. And this is a major development potentially. You know, to kind of wrap your head around the scale of this. We're talking Colonial Pipeline is the largest pipeline system in the US.
Wow.
It stretches 5,500 miles from Houston all the way to New York Harbor.
Oh, wow.
And every single day,
It's a long way.
every single day, it moves over 100 million gallons of fuel.
Gosh.
We're talking gasoline, jet fuel, diesel, heating oil. Like, think about how much of the country relies on that flow of fuel.
With the help from Biden and his administration. Well, Biden wasn't there. Everybody knows it. Anybody who really, really knows anything knew that Biden was never inept enough to be voted in the first place. But this is all part of the cahoots. This is why the committee was formed, and this is why they're going to start charging all these people. They're profiting off the backs and labor by impoverishing its citizens. That's only one. I can go on. They've done this all across the globe.
In 2017, Brookfield acquired NTS, a Brazilian-regulated natural gas pipeline, for over $5 billion. The high-quality pipeline was recently built and covers more than 2,000 kilometers, including the densely populated states of Minas Gerais, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro. These states alone account for more than 50% of Brazil's natural gas demand.
Now, again, I urge you to watch previous episodes because I exposed all this. Do you know where Brookfield originated from? Brazil. With a corrupt government. And they keep ousting and they're fighting, and the people of Brazil are trying so hard to have a real democracy and get rid of all of the corruption. It's all stemmed to Brookfield. This is global, people. He is literally part of the global cabal. And let's not forget the blood oil that the West has been watching the East buy for generations. Generations. Right into the heart of Quebec too, there, people. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Yes.
Welcome back. The global community has moved to put sanctions on Russian oil since Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022. So it may come as a surprise to many that Russian crude oil is still making its way to Canada and to the United States. To tell us why this is happening, we're joined by Isaac Levy, team lead at the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. Isaac, thanks a lot for joining us. This does come as a surprise to me, and I'm sure to many viewers as well. How is it that Russian crude oil is making its way to Canada, and is it being refined in refineries here?
Thanks very much for having me on your show. As you probably know, Canada was the first country globally to implement sanctions directly on Russian oil. So this prohibited the import of crude oil and refined oil such as diesel and jet fuel. However, once these sanctions were implemented on direct importation of Russian oil, the refining loophole remains, which is a legal mechanism by which Russian crude oil can turn up in countries such as India and Turkey, be refined into products like we mentioned, diesel, jet fuel, and then legally be sold to Canada. And we've seen a rise of Canada's imports of oil products from those refineries in India and Turkey that run partially on Russian crude of 2.5 times in the most recent year of 2024 compared to pre-invasion levels of 2021.
So it's gone up 2.5 times. Canada imports 2.5 times as much as it was pre-sanctions. Tell me once again how these liberals really feel. From the heart. Oh, Ukraine, we're going to sanction Russia. Oh, in the meantime, the oligarchs, all of the Laurentian elite who have been stifling the West, who have been trying to shut down the actual profit going to Canadians so they can reap billions of dollars for generations. And guess where Trudeau's money came from and his family? Yes, that's all part of that oligarchy, or however you want to say it. It's all part of the oil world. Blood oil. I can go on and on, but this episode is already an hour long. I hope you enjoyed and can take in everything I just laid in front. I know there's a lot there. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit the like button, the share, and I hope you subscribe. And if you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, this is the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Tagai, and stay informed.